Hi, good afternoon, friends. Today, again with this session, we are on discussion with tourism industry, and today we have with us Mr. Pranay Verdia, who has been in this industry for last almost 20 years, and he has worked with major groups like Hyatt, Taj, Marriott, and other groups. He is being GM for Taj Marriott Properties since last 7 years, and currently is general manager for 4 properties of Marriott in Bangalore, and he is handling almost the posh hotels of the Marriott Group. So, Pranay, welcome to this session.
Thank you, Anshul. Thank you for inviting me to this chat, and I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you, and good to see you.
Okay, so we're discussing about COVID-19 Corona impact, and especially with relevance to the tourism industry and hotel industry, what you are facing. So, what will be your initial comments on this coronavirus, which has affected across the globe?
I think generally we've been inundated with the sheer scale and rapid pace at which this virus is spread across the globe. And I think the novelty of this virus, the unknown factor about this virus has created more anxiety than anything else, because there's no known vaccine, there's no known treatment to this virus, and the transmissibility of this virus as compared to some of the other viruses has kind of taken us off guard completely, and the governments and different businesses have been, obviously, they have had a devastating impact on the overall because of this virus. So that has been the impact across the globe, not only from healthcare workers, but in industries across the globe have been impacted badly. And hospitality and tourism has been right at the forefront of this, purely because the moment government started taking measures in terms of containing this virus, from travel ban to flights not being operating, putting the entire transportation system, shutting down the transportation system, to lockdowns in the city, that brought the entire economic activity to a standstill. And which means obviously there was no urban activity, food and beverage business got impacted. The hotels, a lot of hotels have shut down today across the globe. Occupancies have plunged across the globe, which has obviously put a lot of pressure on business. And I think for foreseeable future, most of the hotels are looking at very grim business pace. Most of them probably are looking at loss and job losses across the globe. So,
okay. So when we are talking about the hotels being closed down, or there is a low percentage of booking, can we have what is the percentage that Marriott or you are looking for a downfall in your bookings, and for next 4 or 5 months, what you are predicting?
So it's difficult to predict the forecast, obviously, but I can tell you that from if you compare this to last year, not even compare it to the forecast for this year, most of the hotels at the lowest point have seen a 90% decline over last year. There might be few exceptions to this, purely because of some remote location not getting impacted. But obviously now with travel ban put in place, most of the hotels, 95, 99% of the hotels would be probably operating at that kind of decline. As I said, foreseeable future, if I can look at possible view of next 2 to 3, there is no business case, because as the extension of lockdowns happen across the globe, as this is, if it is not contained well enough, and obviously governments will be forced or compelled to kind of take those extreme measures, which will not help any industry, let alone I think tourism and hospitality. So we will be looking at probably 10 to 15% on the books if we get say lockdown gets lifted and the local kind of economy comes back to some kind of normalcy. That might probably be the case. But otherwise, 2 to 3 months, 10 to 15% is what generally you would look at. And obviously, there is 22 million tourists who are outbound tourists who go to different destinations across the globe every year. If government can incentivize tour operators, incentivize these companies who holding corporate events or weddings outside the country, whenever this comes back to normalcy, that is the opportunity that our country has in terms of gaining that business within the country and not letting it go outside. Anyways, international travel, the sentiment generally would be low, because the markets which are impacted badly are obviously Europe and US, which has heavy and markets in India have heavy reliance on those markets in terms of business and tourism. Those markets will not come back to normalcy between 4 to 6 months. It will take time. So it's purely domestic tourism, domestic market, domestic business. If it comes back to normalcy, we'll be able to kind of support travel and tourism in the country.
India being a tourist place, do you see that across India you can have a shutdown of the hotels due to this lockdown and the economy slow down?
Yeah, so there is already hotels shutting down. They've shut down most of the hotels, especially small businesses which are very vulnerable. They operate on the fringes. They don't have the cash flow and the liquidity to support their businesses. The migrant workers have left the city, gone to other cities. They don't have the infrastructure to support for next couple of months. They've already shut down hotels. I think small hotels would have already taken that measure because they can't operate at this point in time to support payroll and other expenses in the hotel. Economy is already seen a slowdown because of the economic activity obviously coming to a grinding halt, which will probably take a little while before it comes back to normalcy. And that means even if it is contained, as I said, by mid-May, which is the best case scenario, mid-May, it could take probably a couple of months to even come back to some kind of normalcy. I'm talking about domestic market, not even international market.
With this impact, do you think that there will be further layoff or retrenchment of the staff, and it will be very hard and difficult even for the top brands?
Just to put things into perspective when it comes to job losses, I'm sure if you read the latest numbers, India has already tripled its unemployment rate, which is at 23% compared to 7% 2 weeks back. Same is the case across the globe. US, if you read, 16 million people have lost their jobs in travel tourism. The frontline workers have lost their jobs. The only way, there is absolutely an imminent risk which every organization has today, how to retain and support the payroll, which obviously will lead into job or unemployment, jobless. And that's where I think some of these stimulus packages launched by governments across the globe should be, helping those sector-specific relief packages, kind of probably waiving off some of the rents, property taxes, interest, and other stuff, give some moratorium for next 12 months. Those are probably measures that can be taken in order to support. But yes, we are looking at a risk. If you read World Travel Tourism Council report, we are probably travel and tourism sector is looking at a staring loss of about 50 million jobs across the globe. India alone is looking at, I think, 38 million in jobs. And there are a lot of people who work in informal sector in India. So yeah, that's a big risk.
Yeah, there was a recent survey, especially for the hotel industry, that almost 35 million jobs will be gone this year, probably due to this lockdown. But if you notice that there are groups like JK Group, Apollo, and maybe government ministers, MLAs, they have sacrificed their 1 month pay scale. So do you also see a pay cut for the senior staff or all the staffs in coming months?
Yeah, so Marriott has taken those measures already, starting, I think, this month. A lot of senior management, our president and CEO announced this a few weeks back, saying that he's going without a pay for this full year. Same is the case with most of the senior management across the globe in regional offices at property level, including the general managers and some of the senior management at the hotel, just to make sure that we are able to support our staff at the hotel and be able to sustain and survive through this difficult times. Yeah.
The other aspect of this, it will be a big challenge, which is being taken into consideration by most of the people, that how do we get those staff back when the economy is in daily routine. So do you think that will also be a challenge to get the staff back to their own positions once layoff when everything is done?
Yeah, so it depends from organization to organization, how people oriented, how people focused they are, what measures are they taking today in order to support them for future. If the organizations are purely looking at rationalization of cost and they don't care about people, those obviously they will lose those people over a long term. But if you have a long term vision which is supported by your people at the organization, you will get some of them back. Obviously, a large portion will come back purely because they trust and have commitment in what the hotel or what the organization is trying to do in order to support them. So you have to look at other cost measures in the organization and look at how can you redesign your cost model in order to support your payroll.
Okay. And what do you think that how long it will take, or what will be the time by this industry to bounce back to its normal routine?
It purely depends on two or three factors. One, by when are we able to contain the spread of this virus, because it is all linked to that. And second is, how effective would these sector specific relief packages will work, and how soon will that come into picture? And that will decide. If so, best case scenario in most of the studies is that if by mid-May it is contained, hopefully in next 3 months you will see some economic activity in domestic market. Travel will pick up as the consumer confidence goes up in terms of travel, because initially there will be a lot of panic and fear. People will avoid even going to the restaurants. First they will start to go to offices and then probably go to restaurants, and soon it will pick up in terms of accommodation. But large gatherings, we will not see those large gatherings, conferences and events at least for next 3 months. It could take a good 4 to 6 months to come back to even some kind of normalcy, which is say 50% occupancy, not beyond that. But Q1 2021, hopefully, is when we will be able to come back to a 75 to 80%, which was the case before pre-COVID. That's what I see personally.
So is there any strategy that probably you would have thought about to cope up with this?
Yeah, so there is a near-term strategy to kind of survive and see through this period, which can probably be 3 to 6 months time. Obviously, it depends on business forecast for the hotel. So yeah, products which will be at competitive pricing, services which will be at competitive pricing, alternative sources of revenue like home delivery will be looked at. In terms of offering additional points to our loyalty members will be a key factor to kind of make sure that we are able to gain that preference over our competition hotels. And second would be obviously rationalizing and redesigning our cost model, which is also super important in terms of, and then gradually we'll work on revival recovery plan.
Any other suggestions or a message you would like to give for the government, with which the steps or measures from the government you would expect for this industry to boom again, or at least come back to its normal?
So one is, travel tourism supports about 11% of GDP. It employs about 50 odd million people in India alone. There's a lot of livelihood which is relying or rest on this particular sector. As I said, I'm repeating myself, a sector relief package is important for this sector to revive. Then easing of financial stress, which is purely waiving of give GST holiday for some time, a moratorium for next 12 months in order to support interest and payment and principal loan payment, and generally waiver of taxes, property taxes, rents will help. And if there is any kind of liquidity which can be arranged, it will help the hotel owners to support payroll of the hotel, not have so many people lose their job. So job creation and employment will be definitely a big part.
So let's hope that the government works out with some of these kind of measures which you are expecting, and you should get out of it as soon as possible, and everybody has a good health. So take care of yourself and the group. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Anshul. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
Okay.